त्वदीया प्रियाय नमो राधिकाय त्वदीया प्रियाय नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं नमो अनन्तलीलाय देवाय तुभ्यं दामोदराष्टकम की जय। जय हम विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्रीमद् ऐसी भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी श्री प्रभुपाद की जय। All glories to the Same Devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the Same Devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Nali, could you hand me the Bhagavatam? Huh? He's doing the offering. Huh? Yeah, sure. Actually, it's not going to fit on here. Okay. All right. So reading from today here. Text number 27. Okay. You got it up there? 27? Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, so reading from Canto 2, chapter 7, text number 27. So here, Tokena Jiva Haranam Yat Ulukikayaha Traimasikasya Cha Pada Shaktah Apavritah Yat Gatam Antaragatina Divi Spirushoho Va Unmulanam Tu Itaratha Arjunayoho Na Bhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Yad Ulukikayas Traimasikasya Chapada Sakato Pravrittaha. Can we have some of these lights on? You think it's a little dark in here? Lights? Just maybe these front ones. Oh, okay. Anyways. So, Yadringatantragatena Dvivisprashava Unmulanam Tva Itaratharjunayorna Bhavyam Tokena Jiva Haranam Mudulukikayas Traimasikasya cha padashakato pravrittaha Yatringatantaragaten duvisprushava Unmulanam tva itaratharjunayorna bhavyam Tokena jiva haranam yadulukikayas Traimasikasya chapada shakato pravrittaha Yatringatantaragaten divispurshorva Unmulanam to itaratharjunayo na bhavyam. Anyone else? Mataji's? Yes. Okay. So, Tokena by a child, Haranam, killing a living being, yet one which, Ulukikayaha, assumed the giant body of a demon, Traimasikasya, of one who is only 3 months old, Cha, also, Padam, by the legs, Sakataha, Apravartaha, turned over the cart, yet one who, Ringata, while crawling, Antaragatina, being overtaken, Divi, high in the sky, Sprushoho, touching, Va, either, Unmulanam, uprooting, to, but, it, Itaratha, anyone else then, Arjuna of the two Arjuna trees. Na bhavyam was not possible. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There is no doubt about Lord Krishna's being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how is it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana when he was just on the lap of his mother, to overturn a cart with his legs when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when he was only crawling? All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord Himself. Purport: one cannot manufacture a God by one's mental speculation or by numerical votes, as has become a practice for the less intelligent class of men. God is God eternally, and in ordinary living entities eternally a part and parcel of God. God is one without a second, and the ordinary living entities are many without a number. All such living entities are maintained by God Himself, and that is the verdict of the Vedic literatures. When Krishna was on the lap of his mother, the demon Putana appeared before his mother and prayed to nurture the child in her lap. Mother Yashoda agreed, and the child was transferred onto the lap of Putana, who was in the garb of a respectable lady. Putana wanted to kill the child by smearing poison on the nipple of her breast, but when everything was complete, the Lord sucked her breast along with her very air of life, and the demoniac gigantic body, said to be as long as 6 miles, fell down. But Lord Krishna did not need to expand himself to the length of the she-demon Putana, although he was quite competent to extend himself more than 6 miles long. In his Vamana incarnation, he posed himself as a dwarf Brahmana. But when he took possession of his land promised by Bali Maharaj, he expanded his footsteps to the top of the universe, extending over thousands and millions of miles. So it was not very difficult for Krishna to perform a miracle by extending his bodily features. But he had no desire to do it because of his deep filial, is that how I say that? Filial love for his mother Yashoda. If Yashoda had seen Krishna in her lap extending 6 miles to cope with the she-demon Putana, then the natural filial love of Yashoda would have been hurt, because in that way Yashoda would have come to know that her so-called son Krishna was God Himself. And with the knowledge of Godhood of Krishna, Yashoda Mai would have lost the temper of her love for Krishna as natural mother. But as far as Lord Krishna is concerned, He is God always, either as a child in the lap of his mother or as the cover of the universe, Vamanadev. He does not require to become God by undergoing severe penances. Although some men think of becoming God in that way. By undergoing severe austerities and penances, one cannot become one or equal with God. But one can attain most of the godly qualities. A living entity can attain godly qualities to a large extent, but he cannot become God. Whereas Krishna, without undergoing any type of penance, is God always, either in the lap of his mother or growing up or at any stage of growth. So at the age of only 3 months, he killed the Shakatasura, who had remained hidden behind a cart in the house of Yashodamahi. And when he was crawling and was disturbing his mother from doing household affairs, the mother tied him to a grinding pestle. But the naughty child dragged the pestle up to a pair of very high Arjuna trees in the yard of Yashodamahi. And when the pestle was stuck between the pair of trees, they fell down with a horrible sound. When Yashodamayi came to see the happenings, she thought that her child had been saved from falling trees by the mercy of the Lord, without knowing that the Lord Himself, crawling in a yard, had wreaked the havoc. So that is the way of reciprocation of loving affairs between the Lord and His devotees. Yashodamayi wanted to have the Lord as a child, and the Lord played exactly like a child in her lap, but at the same time He played the part of Almighty Lord when it was so required. The beauty of such pastimes was that the Lord fulfilled everyone's desire. In the case of felling the gigantic Arjuna trees, the Lord's mission was to deliver the 2 sons of Kuvera, who were condemned to become trees by the curse of Narada, as well as to play like a crawling child in the activities of the Lord in the very yard of her home. The Lord in any condition is Lord of the universe, and He can act as such in any form, gigantic or small, as he likes. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Urmitamena Tasmai Shigriva Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadandikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tapatakalam Shri Guru Vaishnavasya Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadvitam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Chakan Vitam Sha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namaste Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhani Sute Devi Pranamami Haripe Vancha Kalpatarubhesha Kripa Sindhu Pyavajapatitanam Pavani Bhyo Vaishnavi Bhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pushtai Padale Shrimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Tinamani Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pushtai Padale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Pracharne Devi Sesa Shunyavadi Paschate Desasani Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Bhagishya Vadane Lakshmi Yasha Bhakshi Shastra Hidaya Samitam Nishimam Aham Bhaji. So, these beautiful pastimes of Krishna, the beautiful narrations of Krishna now being described by Shukadeva Goswami in revealing the different incarnations of Lord coming to this platform of Krishna to Bhagavan Swayam, teaching us about Krishna's transcendental pastimes that go on in the Bhagavatam, and how Shukadeva Goswami continues this here from this 26 onwards, and like Mitravan Prabhu mentioned, it is quite nice as we approach Janmashtami, as we approach the appearance of the Lord. And here, his childhood pastimes are being described, starting with obviously the Putana demon, who is she's the first to come and cause disturbance in Vrindavan, to cause disturbance within the residence of Vrindavan Dham. So we see here that Shukadeva Goswami begins this whole translation here. There's no doubt about Lord Krishna being the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, how is it possible for him to kill a giant demon like Putana? When he was on the lap of his mother and then he goes on to describe to overturn a cart with his legs when he was only 3 months old, to uproot a pair of Arjuna trees so high that they touched the sky when they were only crawling. All these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. So as Shukadeva Goswami ends with that, Prabhupada begins with that. Shukadeva Goswami in that translation ends with this, that all these activities are impossible for anyone other than the Lord himself. And Srila Prabhupada exactly hits on that point straight away. That only the Lord is the Lord. There's no becoming God, there's no attaining God, there's none of this nonsense. And Srila Prabhupada hits heavy on that point. That one cannot manufacture a God by one's mental speculation or by numerical votes, as has become a practice for less intelligent class of men. Srila Prabhupada makes it very clear that Shukadeva Goswami, what he's speaking, is not a manufacturing. He's not manufacturing this. It is not his mental speculation that he is putting down in the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is very important to note, because it is not you just invent your own philosophy, you just invent your own stories according to how you like it, and then people just say, well, different religions have different stories and different ideas. But then it completely defeats the idea of absolute truth, because the idea that I can just come up with something and believe in it is completely bogus. So Prabhupada is he's very strong on that point, that this is not mental speculation. This is absolute truth. This is being established by authority of Vedic knowledge, of scriptures. He is being established by the Lord himself, Shukadeva Goswami. The Lord has established Shukadeva Goswami on the seat to explain all this. And so he is an authority of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is explaining the transcendental pastimes of the Lord. Therefore, this is not some mental speculation come about by some upstart It wasn't that Shukadev Goswami was some crazy person that was just walking around. Because otherwise, all the sages, all these great sages, Vyasadeva, including Vyasadeva himself, Narada Muni, all these great sages would not have come and sit and listen to this great personality. So Prabhupada is hitting on that point that this is not meant to speculation. Just like Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that, oh my Lord, all the great sages, they have concluded you are the absolute truth. You are the topmost personality. You are the supreme personality of Godhead. He gives authority in the Bhagavad Gita. It is not that he just goes, yes, Krishna, you are the supreme. Okay, Arjuna says it, but what is his authority? He backs his knowledge up by saying that all the great sages have concluded this. Therefore, I accept. So Srila Prabhupada is very strongly hitting on this point here, that it is not by practice one develops these things, one develops God's pastimes, or becomes God by practice. And this particular thing, you'll notice, has become, as Prabhupada says, is become a practice for the less intelligent class of men. Just like the Supreme Personality of Godhead transcendental pastimes are being described, such less intelligent class of men, they describe the pastimes of bogus sadhus or bogus God, those who claim to be God, like Sai Baba and all these personalities. They try to describe his pastimes in the way that Krishna's pastimes have been described. So such less intelligent class of men, without taking any authority from the Vedic literatures or taking any authority from Guru Parampara, they try to manufacture this God. And then they try to also, they try to manufacture God's pastimes also. And since they accept a false God, they accept such ugly mere mortal to be God, they try to invent his pastimes also. So, and the problem with that is, neither is that person God, neither is his pastimes eternal, and neither is he at all, does he at all possess any characteristics of the Supreme Personality of God, such as all beauty, all fame, all knowledge, all renunciation. It is simply a cheat for the less intelligent classes of men. And who cheat them? The so-called people who claim to be God. They are the gurus. And so it's really amazing how in this purport, there's this, Prabhupada is describing this one God is without a second, that one cannot become God. And then he's describing the Putana demon. It's very interesting because Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, or actually it's explained by the Acaryas that actually Putana actually is a deceitful guru, teaching enjoyment and salvation. So crafty sadhus who are fond of these represent Putana Tattva for showing mercy to his pure devotees. Child Krishna kills Putana to safeguard his newborn feelings in their hearts. So this is from Chaitanya Shikshamrita, page 242. So it's amazing how this is like being, how Prabhupada is writing this purport of manifesting God or mental speculation of who God is and becoming God, and then right under that he is commenting on Putana, who is the representation of a deceitful guru, one who is a representation of a bogus guru. So Krishna, as he kills the demon Putana, he also showing mercy to his pure devotees. Child Krishna kills Putana to safeguard his newborn feelings in their hearts. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes a whole article on this in the Harmonist. So it's the title Putana, and I just want to read a few things out of it here. Just give me 1 second here. Okay, Putana is it says layer, but it's meant to be slayer, I guess. Putana is the slayer of all infants. The baby, when he or she comes out of the mother's womb, falls at once into the clutches of pseudo-teachers of religion. These teachers are successful in foretelling the attempts of the good preceptors who whose help is never sought by the atheists of this world at the baptism of their children. This is ensured by the arrangements of all established churches of the world. They have been successful only in supplying watchful putanas for effecting the spiritual destructions of persons from the moment of their birth with the cooperation of worldly parents. No human contrivance can prevent these putanas from obtaining possession of the pulpits. This is due to the general prevalence of atheistic disposition in the people of the world. The church that has the best chance of survival is in this damned world is that of atheism under the convenient guise of theism. The churches have always proved the staunchest upholders of the grossest form of worldliness, from which even the worst of non-ecclesiastical criminals, ecclesiastical criminals are bound to recoil. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is making this point that these putanas of this world, they come in this disguise. They present this, he says here, that, one second, I just lost it. Yeah, atheism in the garb of theism. Just like this Buddhism. This is, it seems like religious and it's like spiritual. It's like how the Acharyas, it was prominent during their time too, but we see that as Kali Yuga progresses, this becomes more and more prominent. The prominence of these gurus who don't preach the surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but simply preach about energy and light and themselves to be the goal of that follower's life, that guru to be the goal of follower's life, they completely mislead. So with the babies, when he or she comes out of the mother's womb, falls at once into the clutches of the pseudo-teachers of religion. Bhaktivinoda Thakur similarly prays like that I shall stay away very far from Buddha and Jaimini and all these great, and this Sankhya philosophy, this Kapila, this false Kapila. I shall stay very far from them, knowing that they're simply coming to try to bewilder me. So in this world, this is very amazing how this is working here, that such people, they preach this idea, this pseudo religionists, pseudo gurus, rascals, they preach this knowledge, that this idea that we can become God. And these people of this world who are naturally inclined towards sense gratification from time immemorial, so much so that Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that it's become almost inherent in the jiva to be a sense enjoyer. It's almost like it's become his true nature to divert away from the service of Krishna. So it is very nice for them that because they're like little infants, they're very easily controlled, just like a child when you give it something shiny. You show something shiny to it, immediately grabs onto it. Similarly, these rascals, they show simply this shine, but it actually is only surface. So, because at that young age, or the living entity in its immaturity of understanding, immediately he unfortunately takes up this position and accepts such false gurus. But Krishna, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's in his eternal pastimes of killing this Putana demon. He is manifesting as Sakshat Hari. He's coming as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself in the form of the spiritual master. Acharya Mam Vijaniyam. That I am the Acharya. I have come as the Acharya. I am none different from the Acharya. So Krishna himself, he comes to slay such demons. Therefore you see devoted great personalities like Srila Prabhupada and Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they desire to fulfill the same mission of the Lord. Yada yada hi dharmasya glanir bhaviti bharata. What am I forgetting here? Abhyuta nama dharmasya tadatmanam srijamyaham. That that I descend to establish religion. And he descends to kill miscreants of this world. So similarly, this guru, the spiritual master, he comes to give one real knowledge and establish bhakti within the hearts of those conditioned souls who are bewildered by this glaring or this superficially attractive um, the superficially attractive gurus who want to give them, ultimately they want to give them this false knowledge and this false hope and keep them on the path to going to hell. So Krishna, he himself manifests in the form of the guru to defeat atheism and this Mayavadism and this impersonalism, which is it's covered atheism, although they present themselves as theists. And that this atheism is the greatest church of this age. Everybody who likes atheism. Why? Because you do not have to surrender. There is no surrender at all. You can do what you like. You can just, as long as you give a little bit of donation, as long as you go to the temple a little bit, or you say a few prayers to your guru, or give your guru donations, you're good. Then you can do anything else. So all this nonsense is going on, and these putana like demons of this world are simply desiring to kill this bhakti lata bija, this spark of bhakti. They're designed to kill it. The atheists, the Mayavadis, the impersonalists, they want nothing to do with bhakti. It's amazing how the conditioned soul can be covered up. It's amazing how the inherent nature of the soul, which is to be surrendered to Krishna, to be in love with Krishna, can so amazingly just completely be against that principle completely. But at the same time, want that without Krishna. So it's amazing. It's really amazing aspect of this world. It's amazing fact of this world. How people are against the Krishna consciousness movement. It doesn't help from our own end also that we've had a bad history. But ultimately that you see here that Putana, she came in this guise to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To kill so many other living entities also. To kill so many other babies. But specifically with the mission to kill the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But Krishna, he's God. So there's no killing God. There's no question of even hurting God. But Krishna, playing out his pastimes, he pretends to not know what is going on. He doesn't, like Prabhupada is saying here, he doesn't manifest himself to be to the same form as Putana, but he simply stays in that form of baby Krishna. And kills Putana. He kills this Putana, and not only does he kill her, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur importantly notes that the Shukadeva Goswami, the speaker of the Bhagavatam, is very important to note that Putana also attained a liberation. She actually got that same position as Mother Yashoda. She didn't become Mother Yashoda, but she became similarly attained that position of Mother Yashoda, of being a mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Vamanadev pastimes, right? Vishnu Chitta Prabhu, she becomes the mother of Vamanadev, Putana. No, what is she? Mother of. Oh, right, and then she got to surrender unto the Lord. Mm. Mm. Uh-huh. Mm. And Srila Prabhupada quotes that, and in here, how he has this. Srila Prabhupada is weaving this really nicely. How there's Putana going on, and then he mentions this dwarf Brahmana. He mentions Vamanadev. How Vamanadev in the next incarnation, he took that position of such a great, he expanding himself to be so great. In this pastime when he was killing Putana, he didn't take that position. But in the next incarnation where she was, not next incarnation, in this incarnation of dwarf Brahmana, he took that position of actually expanding his body. And also she was able to, her son, Bali Maharaj, he was able to surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And she was very pleased by that in that in that pastime. She was very upset. Maybe I'm forgetting. I thought that she attained a similar position because she was, huh? After Putana, she became a nurse in the spiritual. Okay, I'm confusing it with the Bali Maharaj pastime. So, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead didn't take the such a position in this particular incarnation, in the next incarnation when he was displaying his pastimes as Vamana, he did take that incarnation. But in that incarnation as Krishna, he didn't take that position in order to facilitate the loving relationship with his devotees. As Mother Yashoda, she's seeing this go on. She's seeing this demon lying on the floor with her baby there. Or she's watching this happen. Lord Krishna did not want to display himself or as Vishnu, as this supreme personality of Godhead. He does not want to display himself as the all-knowing personality of Godhead. Why? Because it destroys the rasa that is going on between Yashoda and Krishna. And similarly, that rasa continues. That rasa that is happening between the Supreme Personality Godhead, for the Supreme Personality Godhead, that is more important than anything else you'll find throughout the pastimes of the Lord. You'll see that his central focus in his leelas is to facilitate the loving relationship with his devotees at all times. And so, whatever situation he may be in, he does two things. He either displays his supremacy sometimes and then makes them forget immediately. Just like he displays his supremacy to Mother Yashoda through his mouth. She sees the whole universe inside his mouth and starts to realize, oh, this is God. My son is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But then she immediately faints and forgets. Because if that was so, if that knowledge was there of Krishna's supremacy, as Prabhupada says here, that this would be a disturbance to the rasa that is going on between Krishna and his devotee. So here Prabhupada says like that, but as far as Lord Krishna is concerned, he is God always, either as a child in the lap of his mother or as a cover of the universe, Vamanadev. He does not require to become God by undergoing severe penances, although some men think of becoming God in that way. By undergoing severe austerities and penances, one cannot become one or equal with God, but one can attain most of the godly qualities. A living being can attain godly quality to a large extent, but cannot become God, whereas Krishna, without undergoing any type of penance, is God always, either in the lap of his mother or growing up or at any stage of growth. So Krishna can perform different activities without having to undergo any change, without having to undergo any austerities. It's like he could have, if he wanted to, displayed such a huge what is this mentioned here, that she was 6 miles tall, and a little baby Krishna. He could have displayed it, but he did not want to. But he fulfilled the same mission without having to display such things. So the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he does not require to change his position in order to fulfill his desire. So here, Prabhupada is mentioning that point, that one does not become God by any austerity or by any penance. That is not possible for any living entity to do. And to think such a thing is absolutely foolish. And so one should strongly try to somehow get away from this position of illusion. And actually, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur mentions some important things here. Let me see. Give me 1 second. I had it pulled up, but mentions how one should await, even though one should await the association of a pure devotee. Okay. The transcendental meaning of words cannot be conveyed by the senses of the conditioned soul. So as long as he does not agree to follow the method of submissive listening to the transcendental sound appearing in the lips of the pure devotee. There is a definite line of succession of bona fide teachers of truth. The bona fide teachers should be available sooner or later to the real seeker of the truth. The bona fide Acharya is not recognizable by the hypocrites and atheists who do not really want to serve Godhead. So long, therefore, as the bona fide teacher does not manifest his appearance to the pure cognitive essence of the seeker of absolute truth, it is necessary for the candidate for spiritual enlightenment to concentrate on self-examination to be able to avoid harboring any lurking traces of insincerity. The words of the sadhus are always available by his causeless mercy, forbearing the efforts of such candidates for finding out their own insincerity. So it is very important to understand this always, that the words of the Srimad Bhagavatam, these transcendental words, they cannot be understood by a conditioned soul. They cannot be understood by those who are not submissively listening to the transcendental. That Prabhupada says that this is the qualification, and Bhagavad Gita says that one is submissive, and Prabhupada adds in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, he says that one is submissive and eager to hear, as the great sages of Naimisharanya expressed to Sutta Goswami, that we are very eager to hear these pastimes of the Lord, and they are very submissive in their, and similarly so was Sutta Goswami to his own spiritual master. He was very submissive in listening, as that verse comes. Very submissively listening and very eager to hear the absolute truth, the real goal of life, the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur notes that one will not be able to understand any of this because of his because they are hypocrites. Here he says, because they are an atheist who do not really want to serve Godhead. So similar hypocrites and atheists will also say that the pure devotee does not exist, therefore Srila Prabhupada is the only pure devotee, and you can only accept him as guru. So one has to recognize that this Srimad Bhagavatam cannot be understood simply by one's own austerities or penances. One has to approach the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And similarly, one cannot become God by one's own austerities and penances. One can attain godly qualities by the practice of devotional service, coming back to his own godly nature, but he cannot become God at any stage. And this can be only understood when one hears properly from a bona fide spiritual master, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is saying. And if one does not have that association or that available pure devotee, then he should, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, he should simply wait. He should simply wait and look at the insincerity that he has within himself. He's hinting that actually it is not that the pure devotee is not available, it is that it's the insincerity that is within us, the faults that are within us, that are not able to recognize the pure devotee. When one is actually overcome this platform of insincerity, when one comes to the platform of being able to actually be introspective, concentrating on self-examination, then he will be able to come in the association of a pure devotee. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is not saying that the pure devotee is not available at any time. He says actually the pure devotee is available at all times. All times the pure devotee is available. According to the sincerity of the disciple or the one who is looking for the absolute truth, then the spiritual master will Krishna will reveal that spiritual master unto him. He'll actually give him that. Brahmande Brahmite Kona Bhagyavan Jiva Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bija. So, but such rascals, because of their insincerity and their atheistic mindsets, they will not be able to attain such position. So Srila Prabhupada's very heavy on this aspect here. And then Prabhupada goes on to describe. Actually, before that, let me see here. Okay. So it is by overlooking or deliberately neglected to undergo this preliminary training for obtaining access to transcendental meaning of all words, that is literal interpreting. I can't say this. All right, interpretationists who follow the ordinary lexicographical meaning of the words of the scripture fail to understand the necessities of never deviating from the interpretations offered by the self-realized souls to whom the transcendental meaning of the words is available. The empiricists who, while following the lexicographical and synthetical method of literal interpretationists, do not scruple to read their own meanings into the text under the impression that the scriptures and products of the human brain liable to every form of error and therefore fit to be corrected by the equally erring caprices of other hypothetical thinkers on the ground of allegations of error that cannot be proved, are disposed to think that the interpretations offered by the acharyas are not scrupulously faithful to the text and offer allegorical explanations for supporting their own sectarian views. So such rascals, they take knowledge from scripture and they think actually anyone can interpret how they like. Anyone can do it. See, all your teachers are also saying like this. So I can also say, it is you take your meaning, now I take my meaning. Simply rascaldom, simply cheating. And so Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur makes the point that this is a preliminary qualification to actually explaining or giving knowledge of bhakti, is that one introspectively seeks out his own faults and that he becomes sincere. Without that, do not try to attempt to explain the words of the acharyas. He's saying that do not try, do not even attempt, because you'll simply just project your own concoctions onto their words and give that as an interpretation. Because if you read the whole Bhagavatam, a lot of devotees have mentioned this, and you can with taking different quotes from Srila Prabhupada and mixing it here and there a little bit, you can come up with Mayavad within Srimad Bhagavatam, within the Srimad Bhagavatam. No problem. Using the translations of Srila Prabhupada. Because there's insincerity. One is not trying to look through the clear glass. One is not trying to look through the clear line of the disciplic succession. One is simply trying to project his own. That insincerity of the person, what is that insincerity? That desire for name, fame, adoration. He wants to be Krishna. So by this we become completely fallen and hopeless. And if we're such a big demon, we become Putana, we become like Putana. And destroying so many other people's bhakti. But Krishna is very watchful to those who are a little bit sincere. He helps them. He gives them the torch of knowledge by which they can go on the proper path of self-realization. So one follows this path which is set by the acharyas, and one does not deviate even a little bit. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is mentioning here. These possible misunderstandings are stated to invite the attention of the reader to their bearing on the following interpretation of the narrative Putana based on the exhibition of former acharyas, heard from the lips of the bona fide teacher of the Absolute. The interpretation is not offered as a literal lexicographical explanation, nor an allegory concocted in the light of empirical knowledge of the past history of race, and may according to be accepted as such. Sri Krishna manifests his eternal birth in the pure cognitive essence of the pure soul, who is located above the lookout of the appearance of the truth for the purpose of suppressing his consistent empirical position. The materialist has a natural repugnance for the transcendental. He is disposed to think that the faith in the incomprehensible is the parent of dogmatism and hypocrisy under the guise of religion. He is also equally
under the delusion that there is and can be no really dividing line between the material and the spiritual. He's strengthened in his delusion by the interpretations of the scriptures by persons who are like-minded with himself. This included all the lexicographical interpreters. The lexicographical interpretation is upheld by Kangsa as the real scientific explanations of scriptures, and one that is perfectly in keeping with the dread of aversion of the transcendental. These lexicographical interpretations are employed by Kangsa in pouring down the first suspected appearance of any genuine faith in the transcendental. King Kangsa knows very well that if the faith in the transcendental is once allowed to grow, it is sure to upset all his empirical prospects. This is the historical grounds for such misgivings. So, Srila Prabhupada says that Sri Krishna manifests his Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada, says here that Sri Krishna manifests his eternal birth in the pure cognitive essence of the pure soul who is located above all mundane limitations. So one who actually describes the pastimes as they are, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, when he reads such pastimes, he's actually present there. He's actually experiencing those pastimes. These words of the Srimad Bhagavatam are non-different from the pastimes of the Lord, are non-different from the Lord. So a pure devotee who is actually absorbed, who does not have all these horrible characteristics of an atheistic person, of a person who's a pseudo-religionist or presenting pseudo-religion. He is actually he's relishing the transcendental pastimes of the Lord as he's speaking them. He's present there in those pastimes. So and when one accepts such pastimes as they are from the Lord, he can also start to get the glimpse of the transcendental nature of the Supreme Personality Godhead. These transcendental pastimes, he can actually start to relish them without actually accepting that and not accepting our own interpretation and our own concoctions. We'll be able to start to relish these pastimes of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Therefore, Srila Prabhupada, he's describing these amazing pastimes that are coming through the Shakatasura, who was kicked by Krishna. And this amazing pastime of Krishna in his childhood is Damodara Ashtakam. As we sung, this Damodar Leela. That's the sweetness of that Leela can only be experienced by those devotees who are pure in heart. And they relish this over and over again. I want to read some of these. I want to read the translation out from this, the Damodara Ashtakam. How this is relished, like this is wrote by Vyasadeva here. So here, to the Supreme Lord, whose form is the embodiment of eternal existence, knowledge and bliss, whose sharpened earrings are swinging to and fro, who is beautifully shining in the divine realm of Gokula, who I, due to the offensive breaking the pot of yogurt that his mother Yashoda was churning into butter, and then stealing the butter that was kept hanging from a swing, is quickly running from the wooden grinding mortar in the fear of Mother Yashoda, who has caught from behind by who has been caught from behind by her, who was running after him with greater speed. To that Supreme Lord, Sri Damodara, I offer my humble obeisances. Seeing the whipping stick in his mother's hand, he is crying and rubbing his eyes and again in his two lotus hands. His eyes are filled with fear. And the necklace of pearls around his neck, which is marked with 3 lines like a conch shell, is shaking because of his quick breathing due to crying. To this Supreme Lord, Sri Damodara, whose belly is bound, not with rose, but with his mother's pure love, I offer my humble obeisances. So such beautiful pastimes the Supreme Personality Godhead is performing. And the devotees like Vyasadeva, Bilva Manga Thakur, all our great past acharyas, they're able to relish this very deeply. They're actually there seeing it happen. So we see this here, by such childhood pastimes as he is drowning the inhabitants of Gokula in pools of ecstasy, and is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of the Supreme Majesty and opulence that He is only conquered by devotees whose pure love is imbued with intimacy and is free from all conceptions of awe and reverence. With great love, I again offer my obeisance to Lord Damodar hundreds and hundreds of times. So Krishna is, Srila Prabhupada is saying in this purport, how Krishna is not manifesting his supremacy. Those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of that he is only conquered by his devotees whose pure love imbues with this and with intimacy. It's interesting how this is stated here, that is revealing to those devotees who are absorbed in knowledge of his supreme majesty. What is he revealing to them? That he is conquered by those who are free from all conceptions of awe and reverence. But if you know His Supreme Majesty, there is a level of awe and reverence. So He's endowing this knowledge. He's revealing that you should be the greater the affection there is for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less this awe and reverence is there. Which you see that you're the Shantaras, Dasyaras. There's more awe and reverence, because Prabhupada says the more the intimacy is with those relationships, the more the different levels of relationships that are there. The Supreme Personality of Godhead with His pastimes is inviting those who are absorbed in His Supreme Majesty to develop more and more loving sentiments by displaying these pastimes. The Supreme Personality of God is so amazing in His activities. He not only is satisfying by performing His pastimes His own pure devotees like Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and so many inhabitants of Vrindavan. They found it very great ecstasy to collect all this rope to bind up Krishna. They found great ecstasy in that. Not only is He doing that, He's encouraging those devotees, other devotees, to come to love Him more and more. That He's saying, if you do this, that you'll conquer me. That I am conquered by my devotees. That I will allow you to tie me with ropes, bind me up. But you simply increase your affection. By doing that, you'll forget about my Supreme Majesty, and I will surrender unto your loving emotions that you're displaying to me, that you're wanting to display to me, you're wanting to have that loving relationship. I will surrender to you. Krishna is saying that He's displaying this like this. Oh Lord, although you are able to give all kind of vindications, I do not pray for you for the boon of impersonal liberation or the highest liberation of eternal life in Vaikuntha or any other boon. Oh Lord, I simply wish that this form of yours as Bala Gopala in Vrindavan may ever be manifested in my heart. For what is the use of any other boon beside this? Is the Supreme Lord, the devotee, what to speak this nonsense of trying to become God? He does not pray for anything at all. He simply desires to see the Lord just as He is. I do not want to hear any concoction of my own mind. I do not want to interpret anything. I simply, my Lord, I want to see you as you are in the Srimad Bhagavatam. That is a pure devotee. So Vyasadeva here is saying like this. It's very amazing actually. This is, how he's speaking about this. So similarly, a devotee, he desires, or a person who is sincere, he does not desire these liberations or great fame or name, anything like this. So any boon, he simply desires to read the Srimad Bhagavatam as it is. He wants to relish this nectar of Srimad Bhagavatam. Oh Lord, your lotus face, who is encircled by locks of soft black hair tinged with red, is kissed again and again by Mother Yashoda, and your lips are reddish like the bimba fruit. May this beautiful vision of your lotus face be ever manifest in my heart. Thousands and thousands of other benedictions are of no use to me. O Supreme Lord, I offer my obeisance unto you, O Damodar, O Ananta, O Vishnu, O Master, O my Lord, please be pleased upon me. By showering your glance of mercy upon me, deliver this poor ignorant fool who is immersed in an ocean of worldly sorrows and become visible to my eyes. O Lord Damodar, just as the two sons of Kuvera, Manigriva and Nakula, Nalakuvara, Nalakuvara, were delivered from the curse of Narada and made into great devotees. By you, in your form as baby tied with a rope with a grinding mortar, in the same way, please give to me your own prema bhakti. I only long for this and have no desire for any kind of liberation. Oh Lord, um, I first of all offer my obeisance to brilliantly effulgent robe which binds your belly. Then I then offer my obeisance to your belly, which is the abode of the entire universe. I humbly bow down to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and I offer my obeisance to you, the Supreme Lord, who displays unlimited pastimes. Remark, this is really nice, that this song was originally spoken by Satyavrata Muni in a conversation with Narada Muni and Saunaka Rishi. So these are the transcendental pastimes of the Lord that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning here. This falling, this is in the case of the failing of the gigantic Arjuna trees, the Lord also fulfilled the mission of delivering those too. So the Lord, in all his pastimes, whether as a child, whether as a dwarf, or any form, displays his supremely God features, his supremacy he displays without any sort of need to go through any penance, austerity. The Lord is the Lord always. He's never deprived. So the Lord is, in any condition, is Lord of the universe, and he can act in such a way, in any form, gigantic or small, as he likes. So we can relish these beautiful pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and meditate upon them, especially as we're approaching the Krishna Janmashtami, to the appearance of the Lord. Taking this as it is from Srila Prabhupada, which has been given to us beautifully in the form of Krishna book, which we can also distribute. Many of them, if we can. Tomorrow, I think we're going out on Harinam on Wednesday. We can try to distribute books while we're there, distribute a good amount of Krishna books. That would be very ecstatic. So we can go on like this, presenting the real work of the Acharyas. Then this heart will be cleansed, and they will come to the platform of devotional service, and them hearing the pure holy name, receiving the pure transcendental literature that is descended from the Guru Parampara, then everyone will always remain satisfied. This nonsense knowledge that I am God, you are God, we all become God, will be completely destroyed simply by the understanding, actually I am the servant of God. And then that is where I can find pleasure, that is where I can be happy. So Srila Prabhupada is presenting that again and again and again, hitting us on the head with a hammer again and again. You are a servant, you are a servant, you are a servant. So we should imbibe that from his books and teach that to others when we are qualified. So I'll end my class there. Please feel free to ask questions or make any comments. I can. It's Mahotsav, Prabhu. You have something, Prabhu?
So, here in the Adi Leela of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 2, text 1, it says, Sri Chaitanya Prabhu Vande Balopi Yattad Anugrahat Tare Nana Matagrahat Vyaptam Siddhanta Sagaram. So, the translation goes, I offer my obeisance to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant child can swim across the ocean of conclusive truth, which is full of the crocodiles of various theories. Srila Prabhupada, in an article in his Back to Godhead magazine in 1960, gives a little different translation. He says that let us offer our respectful obeisances at the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy only even a boy or an ignorant person can cross over the ocean of multi-conclusive opinions of various schools of transcendental realization. Such different conclusions are at loggerhead with each other, represented by Jainism, Buddhism, Jainism, Patanjalism, Gautamism, Kannadism, Kapilism, Shankarism, Dattatreyaism, and so many others like Ramakrishnaism, Aravindaism, etc., both in India and outside. All these different isms are compared with sharks and crocodiles in the vast ocean of scripture for self-realization. So, yeah. So I just wanted to read that out, and it's really amazing that how you brought that point out. Purport Prabhupada mentions that he links this Putana pastime with Bali Maharaj, and then of course the fact that Putana represents all the misleading and devious gurus. So in over there, it's interesting to note how Bali Maharaj's mother, becoming very angry, very envious of Vamana, thought that just like he deceived Bali Maharaj by becoming big, and expanding himself, I shall also expand in this gigantic form. And she tries to deceive the Supreme Personality of Godhead, thinking that, oh, it's not just you who can deceive, I will also deceive. I'll come disguised, just like Vamana comes disguised as a dwarf Brahmana.
Beautiful.
Putana comes disguised as a as a nurse, and she's like, I'll deceive you. And then when she realizes that Krishna is about to kill her, she expands herself, thinking that, oh, you expand, I also expand. It's just amazing. It's just see how you see the link here.
Yeah.
And how, but then when Krishna actually kills her, he's so merciful that even though she tried to deceive Krishna the same way Krishna deceived Bali Maharaj, Krishna gives her a place in the spiritual world as a nurse. So it's really, it's quite amazing, quite interesting, and how far the demoniac spirit can go in wanting to, it's like, I'll cheat God himself. It's like, it's like, yeah.
I like how Srila Prabhupada's like weaved all that in there. It's really awesome. I guess I can do it through here, and then I can hear him better. I can probably hear him better if I just. Anyways, I guess it goes through this. Okay. Abhimanyu Sutta Prabhu, you have something?
Yeah, so what's really, really nice about Srimad Bhagavatam and Krishna consciousness is that it's so clearly established like who God is.
Mm-hmm.
When you're reading Bhagavatam, you don't have to really wonder, is this person God? It's clearly established who God is, what he does, whereas other belief systems or holy books leave you wondering a lot of times, and it's open to so much mental speculation. Like, for instance, like Christianity, how they were talking about, theism in the guise of atheism, and using it as a basis of worldliness. If you talk to Christians, each of them have their own speculations. And it's, nowadays many people say Jesus is God, but it's not really clearly established. Like, there's really not that much evidence in the Bible that really makes you sure that Jesus is God. And there's also things like, like Nick, he sent me this verse I love to use as Christians, that Jesus says that, for the Father is greater than I. So there's even evidence of him acknowledging the Father as greater. So it's just quite bewildering if you're coming into spiritual life or religiosity, and you come across Christianity because you have to speculate, and so then you meet a different Christian. Like I met a Christian the other day, or like 2 days ago, and he was telling me how like Vishnu, like this is like not the real thing or whatever. And I was, he's like, look at me, look at my friends, they're all black, this is the real thing. We're God or whatever. I was like, yeah, God's spiritual black. He's like, no, you're not listening. Like we're black, we're God, man. I was like, man, like what Bible you read, man? He's like, why does it matter? I was like, what Bible you read, man? He's like, King James version. I was like, King James is white, man. He's like, no, you see, you're not listening to me, man. You're not listening. Like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. I was like, man, you're saying God's black, but you're reading the Bible from a white man. You know, it's crazy. And so, like, most of them don't know what the hell is really going on. You're talking about God's black, but you're reading the Bible from a white man.
Seems like you don't know what you're doing, bro. It's like,
You know, it's insane. And then he said the only way he could read our books is if he travels to the place to read it. And you know, they speculate so much. It's crazy.
I was talking to a 19-year-old recently, and I was calling him, and he'd read the Bhagavad Gita, but he said, I have so many questions about who is God, what is God. I don't understand any of it. I read the whole Bhagavad Gita and I don't understand. And I was like, which Bhagavad Gita did you read? It's just like some weird translation. But it's so clear in Srila Prabhupada's purports. It's so clear. Everything is very clear. Okay. Mahotsa Prabhu, you had something?
Yeah, anyway, it's a short one. We're running out of time. But it's Bali Maharaj's sister who sees that. She sees that. She's that's Vamana. But thinking that although Krishna promises, or Narasimhadev promises Prahalad that he won't kill anyone from his dynasty, Krishna does kill Putana, but that's because she was, that related to Prahalad Maharaj in her past life, not in this life, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, there's more can be said, but I guess we're out of time.
Vishnu Chitta Prabhu said that doesn't count.
I know, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Because she took like another birth, Krishna still kept his promise to Prahalad and also killed Putana. That's my point.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Prabhu. Yes. Mataji, do you have any questions? Yes. Deja Mataji.
You were speaking on like the ability to hear depends upon our sincerity, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how to ask my question, because I've known devotees who have said that they're not able to, for instance, like hear His Holiness Bhakti-Vikas Swami's lectures. Like they hear it, but they can't necessarily understand it. But
What was that? It just I couldn't hear.
so I've known devotees who have said that they can't necessarily hear like His Holiness Bhakti-Vikas Swami's lectures.
Oh, sure.
Like they physically can hear, but they don't understand it. And these particular devotees, like I've seen that they're involved in things like bridge preaching, which I don't entirely like know or understand, but I guess like that means of preaching to people, like coming from a standpoint of where they're at. Is that considered like a lack of sincerity on the part of a devotee if they're practicing, chanting Hare Krishna, following the 4 regs, but they may not necessarily be preaching so straightforwardly?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big topic in itself. But one thing that really stuck out to me recently, I just want to reference this. When Guru Maharaj said in one of his lectures is that the reason that I want these farms to happen is because Srila Prabhupada is saying it. He's a pure devotee of Krishna, and Krishna will make it happen. And so the pure devotees, they simply, they'd repeat the message of Krishna and they establish it, and we should just follow. And there's some room, but it generally, like Guru Maharaj has given so many lectures on this, that those devotees who can't appreciate, at least my observation and experience is those who don't like Bhakti-Vikas's, Bhakti-Vikas Swami's approach or whatever, whatever he says, is generally like they're not surrendered to the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And we've seen those who don't like it, they don't like Harinam, they don't like book distribution, they don't like the farms. This whole book of Mothers and Masters, I read it and I was like, what's the problem? What's the controversy? Everything is exactly what Prabhupada said. We read Prabhupada's books every day. It was literally just like reading, okay, this is what Prabhupada says everywhere that we read. But it was banned for what reason? So there is a level of hypocrisy and atheism even present within our movement. What is atheism? It was ultimately not to believe and be surrendered to the words of the pure devotee. To not like give importance to that. That is actually a form of atheism, not to give importance to the Acharya. Because nowadays everybody's just dismissing this farms and book distribution. This is actually atheism. Because what mercy of Krishna will you get from that? You just glide down more and more. And the funniest thing is, people say, "Oh, we don't like how he speaks, and he doesn't know what to do in the West." Have you looked around? Like, look at all these Western devotees here, like yourselves. What bridge preaching did we do? You come to the temple, we dress like this, we present Krishna consciousness. Even this boy, actually, he texted me. I'll tell you what he texted me. I gave him spiritual yoga, which is looked down upon. Generally, when you distribute that book to like new people. So I gave him this book. Ashton, okay, give me 1 second. If I can get this up. Anyways, okay, here we go. So I just kept in touch with him. I asked him how his reading was going. He says, this book is pretty good so far. I like learning the ways of Lord Rishabdev. And he said, what have you learned so far? He said, don't be like hogs and dogs. It's a heavy book. But they're able to appreciate it, understand it, and say, okay, this is what it means. We shouldn't be like hogs and dogs, and we should endeavor for spiritual life. There's a level where people, it's like, okay, you need to, the thing is, because devotees don't have a proper understanding and they can't present the books properly to the people, they have to take this idea, we can't present it straight. You can. I'll tell you how straightforwardly you can present it. We went to a music festival where people were smoking, drinking, and having sex, and I sat there and told them that this is all nonsense, and they all accepted it. They're like, okay, you know what, you're kind of right. They may not change, that's up to them, but they weren't like, oh, this is horrible, I'm going to get up and leave. They all sat through the whole thing, and they listened. And I wasn't like, beating around the bush. I was telling them straight, like, look. And one devotee was there, and he was like, Prabhu, when you're giving that class, I was like really afraid, like what they were going to think. Like, oh my God, you're talking about the 4 eggs and how you should practice that and how that's important in attaining, understanding God and how one should serve God and become a servant of God. But like he was like saying that I was surprised, I was shocked. Actually, they listened the whole time, and they were actually, smiling and understanding it, and they were responding as I was speaking. So we've been taught by our spiritual master how to present the books of Srila Prabhupada properly, not to water them down, but to give them a proper understanding. And if we are trying to be pure in heart, then it will take effect. That is the better understanding than to I have to cater to this person, so I can't speak the truth. If the person even asks me exactly, and I shouldn't tell him, there may be steps you may take, just like Arjuna, that Krishna takes Arjuna through, the body, such and such. But we don't have to shy away, as I've learned over the years. I'm also come from that, where it's like, oh, maybe we should be, but it turns out those who are sincere, they'll take it. And then if we're sincere ourselves, we'll be able to actually impart that knowledge, because it's coming from Guru Parampara. If we're sincere, and people will actually be able to understand things clearly if you're just sincere in your service and your activities, and you're pure. So it is just the covering, as Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, that the covering of it's theism in, what is it? How does he say it? That, yeah. So we shouldn't do that. We just because we don't know enough and we can't present, they don't read Prabhupada's books enough and they don't have faith in it enough, they take the lower denominator and present something else. So if we just stick to the straight and narrow path, and we're successful, and it's present, and the success is going on. So the tree is judged by its fruits. So Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, he may be criticized in so many ways, but you'll see the results of what's coming out. And then when you see results, pratyaksha, then nobody can argue, nobody can say anything. So Bhakti Vikas Maharaj, he will be glorified like this for already predicting it and saying it, that these farms have to be established. And as his disciples, it's our mission to establish that and glorify our spiritual master like that. Prove those, we don't care for them so much anyways, we're just absorbed in serving our spiritual master, but they will look back and go, hopefully they'll go, oh my God, I was wrong. So this is, I hope that helps in some way. There's so many lectures you can watch that addresses that from Guru Maharaj straight also. I'm so sorry, I went so far over time. Okay. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.